Oh, cool. All right. Let's see. Goals, adoption. Um, yeah, and then since Michael, you're the um, first adopter, maybe we should just talk through if you have anything that we can help with immediately, like what's your impressions immediately, and then we can talk about getting other folks on
Yeah,
onto it. So yeah, you want to start with what you were saying about relations?
yeah. I'm already very impressed with what you have, I think. But I think for sure we need more examples, also in the spec
Hmm.
itself, but also in the repo that will
Yeah,
help.
agreed.
Um, that's my main thing.
Hmm. What do you need examples of? What have you found yourself like, I don't know how to do this. How should I do this?
Yeah,
Which ones?
yeah, exactly. How, that you can see what the spec, what the output of the spec is if you if you want to export to the OCIF format.
Hmm.
How should it look exactly? Not just the spec, but also examples. There are now some examples about simple nodes, for example,
Hmm.
advanced example. But I think we need much more. For
Hmm.
every element that's in the spec, we probably need an example, I think, and maybe even a document that has everything in it, so you can see
Yeah, yeah.
how everything links together.
That's a great idea. Yeah, and everything in the kitchen sink document would be really um,
Yeah.
a great idea. Mhm, 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 mhm.
Maybe later on, that if we have if there's somewhere a possibility to validate an exported document, that's also great. But that's maybe a
Mhm.
little bit more the longer term,
Yeah,
although
no,
maybe not that
that
even
would be
that hard
helpful.
to build.
What would you, Michael, with what would you want to export to? Like, what would be the first place you'd want to take something out of your program and put it into something else and see it like a full interop scenario?
Um, and what I've already done myself, I can also export to TLDraw,
Okay.
which I've used in the past to see how an export from my tool to TLDraw looks like. And then you can see it in TLDraw.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think that's very nice. Although other tools can be nice as well, but
No, it's good
because
to,
TLDraw,
it would be good to build around like your use case to begin with, since you're already using it. And so yeah, not that teal draw is like the be all end all, but if that's what you're hoping to take it out of your tool and drop it into, then we could start with a TL draw converter of like OCIF to TL draw. Um,
yeah, what I like about TLDraw is that it's so easy, simple application, but still very powerful.
mhm.
And it
Yeah.
has really good UX,
Hmm.
way better than my tool. I'm jealous.
So wouldn't you need an export from OCIF to TLDraw and from your tool to OCIF so that you have the chain?
Yeah, I think that's for OCIF very good if we have something like that, not just for my tool.
Yeah, Max, what I was
So
thinking about was writing the OCIF to TL draw leg of that. So it'd be on him to get it out of his tool into an
yeah,
OCIF form. And then I'll
yeah,
write the OCIF to TL draw. Now that doesn't solve the round trip, right? Of whatever I can't convert to TL draw format, right? TL draw is not going to keep those nodes around, right? If it doesn't understand them. So we still have that it's not a full implementation, but it's at least a one way. You can go from one tool to another tool.
Yeah, but we could try to also have an import from TLDraw, which also makes it easier to test the export.
The round trip is definitely the golden possibility there. One thing I've thought about trying is some kind of merge of like, I mean, tell me if I'm crazy here, but I'm thinking of remind me the name of your tool, Michael. It's slipping my mind right now.
CodeFlow Canvas.
CodeFlow
CodeFlow
Canvas.
Canvas.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Like
Do you separate Canvas from CodeFlow, or are there?
Yeah, code and flow are also separate words.
Okay,
Yeah.
CodeFlow Canvas. So yeah, I was thinking something like CodeFlow Canvas to an this is too chunky. To an OCIF file, and then going to actually TL draw, and then saving the TL draw back out again, and then merging with like make some changes and then merge this OCIF file, merge these two and see what happens.
Yeah, and also,
So
but also
that would,
and back to CodeFlow Canvas again.
and then go back to CodeFlow Canvas. But even just seeing, so like going from OCIF to TL draw, if there are things in CodeFlow Canvas that TL draw doesn't understand, which I'm assuming there are, do you know what some of those things are
Um,
that
yeah,
you
the
have no
thing
way
that
to represent?
yeah, I think I can render it totally to TLDraw, but something that I have are compositions, and I can reuse compositions. You can in normal code you can compare it with functions because but yeah, those compositions are also a set of nodes with connections between them, edges between them. But you can have the same composition multiple times on the canvas, and when you change that one composition, all those other compositions also have that same flow. And I think TLDraw does not have something like that. It has groups, but you can when you clone a group, you make a copy. I think you cannot when you change the group, it doesn't change the copy. If I'm not mistaken.
If you change the group, it doesn't change the copy of the group. Okay, so you have like, you almost have like an idea of like inheritance, like this. There's like object A and oops, object B.
Yeah, it's more like a sub flow that you can reuse,
And if you change
and
this,
they can be nested as well.
gotcha. Would you want to
Can-
share your screen real quick and show what you're talking about?
Yeah, let's see. All right.
I just allowed, you might have to hit screen share again.
Yeah, but I can. Yeah. Let's see. Sure. And I'm also still thinking how I should export compositions
Yeah, let's talk
themselves
about
to
that.
OCIF.
Uh-huh.
Let's see. Where do I have one? This blue box is a
Okay.
composition.
Okay.
And when I edit it, I can
Oh,
do it,
interesting.
and I can go in further. This is a nested composition.
Okay.
But when I make a copy of this composition, this is this.
Uh-huh.
If I change this composition, this is also changed.
Ah,
So
interesting.
let's see. Show inputs.
So it acts
So
kind
the
of like, yeah.
same visual node is visible in two places, sort of.
Yeah, the definition of this composition is the same.
So is it showing the same resource?
Yeah,
And
if I look below in memory, this is stored in the index in the browser storage.
no, I was using the terms of OCIF. So is the same visual node, are two different visual nodes rendering the same OCIF resource? Could this be used to model your use case?
Yeah. This I don't. Yeah, because there are now two compositions. Because this here's another composition that's the same, but wait a minute.
Okay, so what's
So
in a composition?
I probably will export the compositions to resources in OCF format.
But in a composition, so this 8E3 thing is a composition. So a composition has an ID, has input nodes, has a name, has nodes, has output nodes. So it would sort of benefit from being visual nodes or relation concept to be linked to the other things and not just stored away in a resource. So maybe it should
I'm not
be
sure
modeled as a special node or as a special relation.
Yeah, I think as a resource, because if in the OCF format you would render this this as a node, then you would also have to put these nodes in that node. But the other composition that would be exported as a separate node with the same
with the same set of nodes.
content,
You've duplicated the nodes now.
You don't want to duplicate it. That's why I was thinking of still having nodes on the exporting the composition node to the OCF format, but put the reference to a resource in it, and the resource contains the flow of that composition. So
a simpler
that would
way
work.
Yeah, go ahead.
That would work, but it's it's like the base case. So it's like a hack to use transclusion because we only have that defined for nodes showing resources. But what you have in your resource is not an opaque image, but is a highly connected entity, which really suffers a bit from being modeled as a poor resource. It should more live on the nodes and relation layer. So we could add a new concept. Let's say we could say we have a visual node which isn't showing anything except the stuff that another visual node contains. So that way we have transclusion on the visual node layer. If we just say we have a node extension that says I'm just a delegating node. All my properties are taken from here, or maybe some of my properties are here.
Yeah, I think I understand.
So the next question is these two blue boxes with the label test. If I change one of the test labels, is the other label changed?
Yes, should be. Probably if I refresh. Oh no.
Okay, so that's an entity of the composition itself. If I resize the blue box, is the other blue box resized accordingly?
Currently, I can't resize these boxes. But
okay, so at least I have an independent position.
Yeah.
So they're not completely identical. So would it make sense for your use case to have them resize independently, or is that?
I think that, yeah,
Just a question. I don't know.
yeah, in this case, yeah, I think in this case it should have the same size, but yeah,
Okay, because it's not user resized at all, because it has just an automatic size and the same content should link to
yeah,
the same size.
yeah. In this
Is
case, it has it's done by the system.
okay.
Mhm.
I have nodes that I can resize a little bit, and I can imagine in the future that these compositions also can show content from something that is output by the nodes under the hood in this composition. And currently, I don't have that, but I can imagine in the future that something that I build something like that, and
So
then
then
you
they would,
might want to resize them independently.
and then they would
Even if,
also look differently, but contain the same computation nodes inside.
yeah, and depending on the input, the
Mhm.
the output is different. That's also already what you see happening here. This is the same computation, but here the input is 5 and the output is R2 is an object of A and B. Um, but yeah, the output is different. I hope. If you understand what I mean. Let's see if I can replicate.
So in your JSON, we see already the 4 properties of the composition. And then you have probably somewhere the instances of the compositions as well.
Yeah, I don't have the composition themselves yet here in this.
No, in
In
your own JSON, I mean, in your code,
yeah, in my code there is here at
where we just saw that they.
Mhm.
this is
So
the
all stuff inside these 2 compositions is properties of the composition itself. So what we
yeah
see on the screen is like a visual node
Mhm.
saying, I contain a composition, and that is another
yeah
complex node or relation,
yeah
I'm not sure yet, with all these things.
yeah, but these 2
Feels like an
compositions.
entirely different canvas.
Let's start from scratch. This composition has a flow in it, and that flow also has a composition in it. So this test 2, let's see. This is test 5 is the composition that's used on the parent flow, and
Mhm.
this test 2 is a different composition, a nested composition that has a different flow in
Okay,
it.
that
So that's
it calls even more to model it as nodes, because nodes can contain nodes, can link to nodes, and resources cannot.
yeah,
Exactly.
and
No, it has to be nodes.
these nodes, these composition nodes should be in this list somewhere. Let's see, here, this one, for example.
And then you have this concept in your program that another concept that TLDraw doesn't have, which is related to compositions, which are, it's like an entirely different canvas. Like when you go into that composition, everything else goes away, and you're resizing things on a new XY plane, um,
Yeah,
that kind of thing. And so how have you handled that? How have you thought about handling that with TLDraw, that you would like just put them on a, like TLDraw
yeah,
has pages? Would you use a separate page? Would you use, and I'm not thinking about OCIF right now. I'm just thinking about like, how would you even
yeah,
export that? Just put it in a separate
yeah.
spot on TLDraw's canvas on the same
Very
canvas?
No,
good, good question. I
just
haven't
zoom
thought about
in.
it yet.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Max.
It's just zooming in.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
yeah, that could be. But I haven't
That
thought
would be
about
the
it yet.
most natural thing for a zoomable canvas.
Yeah. Yeah, especially for TLDraw. That would be the most natural thing. Um, Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. So you were, Max, I think you mentioned an idea about how to handle sort of how to generally implement transclusion, and I'm not sure I 100% followed you. Can you say it again?
Yeah, the idea would be to say we have a node extension that says some of my properties come from another node. Especially, for example, the resource which I'm showing or other stuff. We need to be careful how to specify this extension
Yeah.
to distinguish what remains separate from the template node. I mean, it's not template. There's one node that acts as a holder. It has its own. Okay, it's
Yeah,
the
this was the one
holder.
that you added fairly late in the process. I remember we talked about it last meeting.
Yeah, we don't have such a holder yet. I'm just imagining it right now. So imagine we have some kind of a holder node, which is a
Uh-huh.
visual node. It always
Uh-huh.
has its own position and maybe also its own size.
Mm-hmm.
And then it can, for its other properties, delegate to another visual node. So it's like the data node. We have a holder node and a data node. And the data node is another visual node,
Mm-hmm.
but it has a property to mark it as
Non-visible.
hidden or
Yeah.
usually invisible. It can also be visible. I don't care. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
and then you can say, okay, here my box is showing the stuff from that box over there. And whether that box over there is hidden or not, so it's another decision.
That's a great point. If you
Hmm.
simplify thinking about this down to what you have right there inside test 5 is you have two if you open it up, like that value type box on the left, that thing exists in two places kind of thing on the canvas, inside test 5 here and then inside test 5 in that other flow. And so really the question, an even simpler question is how can you show the same node twice on the canvas such that if you edit it in either place, you're editing the other one, which is transclusion, like you mentioned, Max.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
seems like that generalizable capability would give us the ability to do everything else, I think.
Yeah, the question is, for example, should we transclude the size from the other node or have its own size? That's maybe use case dependent.
Yep.
But what other things? A position must be unique, otherwise it doesn't make sense to have everything in the same spot.
Shouldn't the extension kind of allow you to specify which properties you want to transclude?
Yeah, maybe. But
Right?
then we
You're
also have
like list
to,
you list the properties that you want to transclude kind of thing.
yeah, but we have to look how that plays together with other extensions. So
Yep.
if an extension says I'm defining ports, but we didn't say we want to inherit ports, then
Right.
I mean, we should probably,
Default to
yeah, let's
transclude. Yeah.
maybe let's look what a node really has and then decide how to handle it. So if I look at our basic node in the spec, where
Mm-hmm.
do we have it? Um,
Yeah, I have the spec up on my screen right now.
I can
yeah,
stop sharing
node.
if
Okay. So we have an ID, should be unique. Position should be unique. Size, debatable. Resource, debatable. Data. Yeah, these are the extensions. Should we
Mhm.
transclude extensions or not? Rotation could be own or transcluded. Scale,
Mhm.
again. So we could, yeah, the easiest would be to have a list of non-transcluded properties, or
I
even
think so.
simpler, if a visual node
Mhm.
defines properties on its own, then these
Mhm.
override the transcluded ones. So if I
If
have a
the
node that
visual
has no
node, yeah.
position, but it has a
Mhm.
scale and it transcludes from somewhere, Position doesn't make sense, but everything. Yeah, transclusion.
Yeah, position seems like the only one that we would want to by default um not transclude, because then, like you said, it wouldn't make any sense. They would be on top of each other.
Yeah, you want to have different.
Yeah, so by default, position differs. Everything else, I think, copies over, is transcluded between the two elements, or the n number of elements that are transcluded with one another, including everything in the resource bag. I'm sorry, everything in the data bag. So all by default, every extension will be transcluded across all of those nodes. I think that's the thing that makes the most sense. But you can omit I don't know. That's
Okay.
one way of doing it.
And so the special role of position is weird. Maybe we should also allow overwriting position. I don't know for which use case. Then maybe if you transclude again and that other node then has, can I transclude from multiple nodes?
Oh, is transcluding like transitive kind of thing?
It must be transitive for
So
sure.
there's a really interesting case of this in practice. Have you guys used Notion and its synced blocks feature?
No,
So
I don't use
It must be the
Notion,
same.
you're probably familiar with Notion. Like it's a pretty standard document editor out there. You guys heard of it or use
I
it?
used it
heard of
already, but
Okay.
I don't know what sync blocks right now.
Okay, so they had this really interesting problem of like they wanted to enable transclusion for the purpose of you could, edit something in one document and you could include it in several different other documents as sort of a window to that item, to that, and then you could edit it in that one, go back to the original place and edit it and would update, standard transclusion stuff. So that's a pretty powerful feature. And the design decision they had to make was, does a transcluded block exist in the original location? And that's sort of the root or the origin or whatever. And then it's transcluded to these other locations, and the other locations are special because they're not the origin. They're like, mirrors of the origin. Or is a transcluded block a abstract entity, and every location that it's visible at is the same? It's just a place that is visualizing that one transcluded entity, and it has very practical ramifications for the UX of like, if I delete the block in the origin, does it get deleted everywhere else? Or, because I've removed it from its original place, or does it stay in all the other places because it was just this abstract block that is now visible in these other places? So in that sense, it's not gone. And which for a user, that would kind of be surprising of like, I created this whole document, I transcluded this little section of the document, and then I intended to delete that section of the document. But because I had transcluded it to these other documents and they could see it, now I'm going to leave it there in those other documents, even though I deleted it in my origin document. It's like, yeah, anyway, there's some kind of two different ways to think about this.
it sounds like it's comparable with the composition concept that I have, but because if I've just I don't know if you just saw that, but I added this expression node to the composition, and it's now used by both of these nodes. And if I would remove it, then it would be removed for both. Now you can see it in the results here. It was 10 and 110 before I added that expression, and now it's 16 and 116. So if I remove it, then
what happens if you create a composition? Like, what happens if you remove you create you create a composition, you copy that composition, you delete the original composition. Does the copy get deleted, or does the copy stay around?
If I remove this, then this will stay around.
You're not sharing your screen, by the way. I'm sharing mine now.
Oh, oh,
So sorry, I
oh,
have to
sorry.
stop.
Oh, yeah.
Oh wait, no, you are.
Ah,
Sorry,
I
I didn't.
think I am
Zoom,
sharing.
Zoom
Just
apparently supports multiple screen shares now. I didn't realize that. My bad. Um, but yeah, sorry. So you deleted one and the other one stayed.
yeah,
Yeah.
and because currently, if I were to remove this one, then in memory still exists. I don't support that yet. That I can remove it, remove
Got
it
it.
totally.
Interesting.
This just references with
Mhm.
the ID the global compositions store.
Mhm.
So if I would make some copies,
So the
this
reason
one,
I brought that
then
up, Max, is because you were asking about transcluding a transcluded node, like,
Yeah.
and in the case of transcluding a transcluded node doesn't mean any, you're transcluding the original node. In the case of it, it's an abstract entity that can be represented in multiple places. There's no notion of, there's no difference between the original node and the transcluded node. They're all the same node. It just happens to be visible in all these different places.
Yeah, but if they have a different position
Mhm,
and maybe a different size,
mhm.
maybe we could limit it to these two things and say transclusion can only transclude position and size.
You mean only position and size can be not
Yeah,
transcluded?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, got it.
So this idea of overwriting extensions is also tricky because what if I want to overwrite just one extension but not the other
Yeah,
two, which I'm not aware of?
yeah. No, it's a good point.
It starts to get complicated. If we just say, but okay, what about the ID? Every every visual node has its own ID, different from the transcluded one, obviously.
Yeah.
Then position, we
Yep.
could say it's always different for simplicity's sake. And size, well, there maybe it's optional to give them their own size, but probably would make most sense to just give them their own size each time. And if the application automatically determines the size, then it should
yeah.
also know about its own transclusion and set it in all transcluded nodes. I mean, how do you handle it in your current code, Michael? Do you
Mhm.
just have one item and do a lookup? What's the size?
Yeah, these nodes have their own position and their own size, but the size is determined in this case by the system. But if I would make
Sure.
these user resizable, then they have their own size. The
Mhm.
the only thing they share is the flow that's stored in the composition store
And the name.
and the name. Yeah, the
Yeah.
name is also from the composition store. Yeah. I think if you look at how the composition node itself is exported, let's see where it is. This is the composition, one of the composition nodes, I think. But you see it
Mhm.
has a position, it has a size, although this is system determined, but also it's also stored on the composition level, of on the node level. Here's the, oh no, this is a different node type. These are some properties, the ID that the composition, the composition ID. So this is the ID that's used in the composition store.
So this
Mhm.
is like what's transcluded.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
you can think of it as the ID of the node that's actually being transcluded. Um, uh, gosh,
Here's
that's
the
interesting.
another one.
So then we would represent the node or nodes. Let's just use node for now. that's being transcluded as sort of, like you said, Max, it could be invisible or visible. And then everything else is a transclusion of that single node. But the weird thing is, like, what happens if you delete that node? Then all those transclusions are like an empty pointer or a hanging pointer, dangling pointer, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
you would want to like a cascading delete, basically. Um,
Yeah. So if these are semantics of a transclusion, then the original, yeah, deleting the original node causes deletion of all.
all transclusions of the node.
Yeah.
So
and
then
there's
isn't it,
something.
Max, are you thinking of it as an extension of, it's a node extension,
Yeah. Why not?
and it's an extension that can be applied to the node and all of the transclusions of the node? Like I'm trying to think of what the properties would be. Be like the node ID that is the transcluded node. And what if you are the origin node? Then you don't have a node ID. It's null or nil or whatever.
No. The extension is only used on the transclusion nodes, not on the original nodes.
Got it. Okay. Now I'm tracking you. Okay. That makes sense.
So the original node is just any plain node, which
Any
may
node.
be
Exactly.
visible or not, we don't care. And then we have the transcluded node, which is a node using a transclusion extension. And in there it lists one node ID of the transcluded original node.
Love it.
And it usually should have ID position and size.
Yeah. Yep. And that's good because that's what our required and recommended fields are or properties are for nodes. If you look at the spec, and everything else is optional already. So that feels right. Some nice. So then in the case of compositions, right, you could represent those. How I would think about representing those now, if we assume this new transclusion extension is the test 5 that when you had two test 5s, those are relations. I would call them group, set relations or whatever, that has a set of nodes in it. And then the nodes that are inside test 5 are transcluded within, between all of the instances of test 5.
Yeah, and they all these nodes that, for example, if I open it again, this parallel node.
Yep.
That when I would export this to the OK format would also be on the root level, but
Yes.
with a special flag that it's invisible.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I think Max was saying that you might have only two, what was that node called again? Position, not position. Sorry.
Parallel.
I already
This
forgot.
one.
Parallel, yeah. You would have two nodes that are parallel. One is the original and one is the transcluded one. If you have two copies of test 5.
No. Michael wants to transclude the whole group.
Yeah.
So we have one parallel. Now we are inside the test 5. Test 5 contains, he's using nesting at the same time.
Yep.
So
yeah.
This parallel and this value type and this test 2, all the three elements, they exist once. Then we group them using a relation.
Okay. I see.
And then we need, do we have something like a container node where we say one node contains the other nodes? Yeah, that's what we do with the relation, right? So then
That's what we do with the relation. Yes.
So we create one holder node to put the other nodes inside using a relation. And this holder node is the original for our transclusion in the two test 5 things.
Yeah.
Couldn't be any simpler.
Oh yeah, nice. Because they're contained in the same thing, you just transclude the holder node.
Yeah.
No, that won't work. Well, yeah, because we talked about you can do XY offsets within the holder node. I was thinking about like where you would put the
Hmm.
parallel needs to be in two different places on the canvas. And
For that, we just use the relative offset
relative, yes.
extension.
Yeah.
This is quite a test already.
Yeah, yeah. Michael was like, "Hey, this one thing is not in TL draw." Boy, pull the thread.
Yeah, yeah, this composition thing is something, especially nested composition. It's been something I've been working on during the holidays to get some stuff working. It already gave me some headaches, but I really wanted to make this work. I don't know why exactly, but I just like the concept.
Whew.
So back to the general transclusion. Right now, we do not prevent to transclude transcluded nodes again and again in the log chain. We could say that a transcluded node should not be a transcluded node itself, but also we could also allow it. I don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind. I think it would be one of those things of like we recommend that the normal user intention is probably to transclude the original node rather than the transcluded node. And so there's probably not a good reason to transclude a transcluded node, but it's not disallowed by the spec. Which I guess this will be an extension. Um, this is a helpful
Can
case,
I,
Michael.
I,
Yeah.
I can imagine that yeah, in my case, think I won't have that, something like that, but I've seen some movies demos from Toad Pond from
Mm-hmm.
Lou Wilson from TL Draw,
Yep.
who has this mirroring
Mm-hmm.
effect. He made this mirroring effect. I think it sounds a bit like that, but not
Yep.
100% sure.
Yeah, that one does feel like transcluding transcluded nodes.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, that was a nice demo.
yeah,
But
Um,
it's also adding an effect while transcluding. That's if it's really mirrored or just the same.
there's several of them that she showed off. One was adding rotation each time, and so as you rotate the base node, it multiplies or sums the rotation across all the other nodes. So you can make like a flower effect of like
Uh-huh.
all these are transcluded from one another. You rotate that one, and it rotates this one, which rotates this one more, which rotates that one more, and that one more, and you get
yeah,
these really cool cascades of effects. Um,
Okay.
yeah, really cool.
um, I'm noticing we have like 5 minutes-ish left. This was a super interesting use case that I think transclusion is going to be a general thing we're going to need to support. So I'm glad
Yeah,
that came up.
yeah,
Um,
cool.
what other things should we be focusing on around adoption? Certainly getting an email newsletter out that lets people know that we're following along, that 0.2 is out there and is ready to be played with. Um, Michael, do you want to record a very brief little demo video or something like that we could drop into Discord or something like that
Yeah,
shows where you're at with 0.2?
yeah,
Uh,
that's a good idea. Um, I wanted to I'd make some recordings now and then anyway for my project, and I've planned to make a recording again soon about some stuff that I'm working on. But yeah, this is something I can do for sure.
cool.
I was also thinking I'm also on the Future of Code Slack. I don't know if you are familiar with that.
Yes, I'm on it as well. Yeah.
And because we can also post a link there because it's
Mhm.
quite a big community, 3,000
Yeah.
people, I think.
And totally right up their alley. That seems like a great
Yeah,
one to post in there. I'll let you own that one. Feel free to do that whenever you're ready. I'll own the email, getting that out the door. Um, and yeah, I think what else should we be focused on?
Examples. I think.
Yes, examples. Yes. Max, would you mind putting together just a single example of like how you would like it structured, or if you already have one in there that you say just follow this pattern, you know, wherever. I'm happy to write some of the examples. I just need to know
It's
what pattern.
the tricky thing is to have an example that uses all core features.
Mm,
And then for each section, strip it away, only show that part, and then piece it back
yeah,
together.
you're right.
But using all core features, also what is especially core and what not, we have this shifting
We have that.
boundary of what is built in.
Right. Okay. That's a great point. Let me see. Yeah, I might be able to take a crack at that. Add an everything document.
Yeah, the minimal document that uses all core features. And then the next step is a minimal example that uses all extensions we mention in the spec. And if we have that as a JSON file, it should be really easy to craft parts of that for the example
Great.
sections.
That's a really pragmatic way to start. I like that. Just get the JSON file, and then we can figure out how we want to turn that into documentation later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To turn it into documentation would be easy for me, but to come up with the first example using everything and also sort of deciding, do we need to include this in the core or can we leave it out? So this is a bit
I can be the
a design question.
I can be the initial decider, and then we can argue about it.
Yeah, well, that's always good.
Happy to do it. Yeah, whenever there's a like, where should we go out to eat? I'll just say something just to get us started. We're going to that restaurant. Any problems? All right. No? Okay, great. We're going. Or yes, great. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. No, this is
And then
good.
we talked about the homepage to have it maybe add a validator. That's certainly a good next step to have a validator. And then the next step after that could be converters. So somebody exports XKelidraw to its native format. And then we have a converter that can convert XKelidraw to OCF and back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if we have like 3 formats and can do I/O, then already we can connect tools in arbitrary weird ways. And then the tool authors might come over and say, hey, maybe we should integrate this into our tool.
Yeah.
So this could be a way to get adoption started, especially with tools we would like to adopt first.
Yeah. No, I think a validator, I'm sorry, I can't write the code right now for a validator. And when I say right now, I mean like in the next week or two. I'm just have a particularly busy beginning of the year. And I'm gonna make sure that we get the newsletter out of like what we have already done. Make sure people know about that. And then work on the example docs, or the example uses of because I do think that's one of the things like Michael mentioned that people will immediately ask.
Yeah, that's certainly the near-term goal, but you asked for year-long goals, and that's maybe where the converter comes
I agree.
in.
Yeah, no, I think OCF to TL draw, to and from TL draw would be huge. And then having a validator and updating the homepage.
Probably when we have some examples, then we might even be able to use something like Cursor to create a validator for us.
That's what I'm hoping is, yeah, if I can feed it the spec and some examples, how good of a job. Can it get me 80% of the way there, and then I can work out the fiddly bits?
I was just trying it with ChatGPT to put the current spec in it. It does even do a nice job already of creating some JSON.
Max, you've written such an LLM readable spec. Well done.
How could that happen? Maybe LLMs did help in the creation of the spec already.
Woohoo. Yep. Perfect.
Awesome.
All right. Cool. Well, I think we've got marching orders for now. Max, do you want to own? I saw you seemed like you were taking some notes around the transclusion thing.
Yeah, I'll add the transclusion extension. Yeah.
Great. All right. Fun times. Well, let's get some people using this thing. We've already got one implementation with CodeFlow Canvas. How great is that? It's a good way to start the new year.
But
That's also
nobody
something we
knows
should
it.
celebrate on the homepage.
Oh, heck yeah. Absolutely. Yep. All right. Well, talk to you guys
Okay.
soon.
Yeah. Have a nice day. Evening.
Bye.
Yep. Bye bye.